Hello, hello. Hey Anne, how are you? I'm just setting up our YouTube stream, mate, and I'll be with you all very, very shortly. I think we're good to go. Hello, everyone. Hello, thank you for joining in to another one of our live streams. We do these every 2 nights to let you know what's going on with the weather without the bullshit. So once we get a few folks on and watching, we'll get started. So if you want to talk a bit of trash with me, feel free. I had a terrible day today. I did. It's the one day a week I do cardio. I hate cardio. I really hate cardio. I feel like I'm. Oh, I don't know. I just feel so bad doing cardio. It's just such an annoying thing to do. Hey Caroline, how are you? Yeah. So if I sound a little bit flat, it's because I didn't lift my weights today. So I just had to run on a treadmill. Ugh, yuck. All right. How are we going? We're starting to get a few folks out there. Let us know how you are. And we'll kick off. So we've got 2 things we're going to discuss today. Hey, Steve. We've got 2 things we're going to discuss today. We've got to discuss a tropical cyclone that's going to hit the Kimberley on Saturday. And then we've also got to talk big time about some massive rain coming for far north Queensland and due to a Gulf of Carpentaria low. No, not today, Dolphins. Them guns are getting smaller today. I had to run on a treadmill, mate. There's no guns. There's nothing here anymore. I feel flat. So they're the two topics of discussion today, folks, and I think we're good to go. I think everyone's coming on. All right. So let's get started, eh? The first thing we've got to talk about is probably the most important one, and that's the Kimberley cyclone. We've got a cyclone watch issued by the Bureau of Meteorology from just south of Broome up through to the Mitchell Plateau. This system is going to come onto the coast on Saturday. You can already see where it is now. I will just put the ruler out and we'll have a look at exactly where it is. But it's about 650 kilometres or so to the northwest of Broome. And from Derby, it's about 650 kilometres northwest of Derby. Now, the system's going to move southeast. It shouldn't give us too many surprises, but because it's so poorly formed at the moment, it might wobble about a bit as it's trying to find its feet and as it's trying to find its centre. So this is our system, and it is expected to intensify on approach to the coast. Now, not much today because it's still finding its feet. Today and tonight, not expecting to see a huge increase in intensity of this, but tomorrow night will tell the tale. Tomorrow night, we expect it to have already found its centre. We expect it to have started to develop some deep convection right around that centre, and that's where we hit that diurnal maximum for convection overnight tomorrow night. That's where the thing should be going. Boom. And so that's the expectation there. And I'll show you some modelling here, which is pretty aggressive with the boom bit. All right. So just understand that there is a real chance that this intensifies a little sharper than current model projections indicate. So just something to sort of keep in your mind. All right, so that's number 1 thing we're talking about. Number 2 thing we're talking about is a low pressure system in the Gulf of Carpentaria. It's only just formed today. It's very, very new. There's a weak circulation right in there in the northern Gulf. Just on your screen, so on your screen just over there is where our circulation is. It's pretty poorly formed at the moment. It's not really producing a lot of deep convection around the core right now, but we do expect that system to slow down tomorrow and start producing some deep thunderstorm activity. Once it does that, we expect it to drift southwards, and as it drifts southwards, it's going to bring an absolute truck ton of rain down south with it, through the Cape and through FNQ. More on that in a second. We're going to go back to WA and discuss that. Before we kick off with the WA discussion, Fair Dinkum Builds are our major sponsor on the top left there. We thank them for their sponsorship, and if you are thinking about a Shed Safe accredited shed, please check them out and keep them in mind. And our subscription service, folks, I've got to plug that because that's how we make a living. weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. It's on the top of your screen there. That's the website. And whether subscribers, $32.95 it costs you for the basic subscription. The basic subscription gets you all these videos. So everything I'm talking about now has already been talked about. All the subscribers know everything I'm about to tell you. We talk about what's happening in the tropics in the next fortnight every day during the wet season. We talk about a specific one for the Kimberley, Cape York Peninsula and the Gulf because they're getting smashed. Cairns, where they're going to get smashed. Well, the region is anyway. Townsville, Mackay area, they're potentially the northern parts of that are going to see some activity. So we talk about these areas on a daily basis. So if you are interested and you do want to support us, it costs $32.95 in the subscription for that basic package, and we thank you very much for your support. If you can't, or you don't want to, or you just don't know if you like us yet, stick around, watch these updates, participate in these updates, and then you might figure it out whether you do or you don't. We hope you do. All right, so let's go over to Western Australia, and we're going to zoom into Derby and Broome because really that's what we care about, right? If you want to know the technical stuff, become a subscriber. We talk about the technical stuff, but we want to know what effects is this going to have on the humans, where the humans live, and the humans live in Broome and Derby, and there's a couple of little indigenous settlements up the top of that peninsula. So, right, let's go to Derby and let's have a closer look at that area. So I'm going to use Derby as our overlay because right now the general model consensus is probably Derby, but we are seeing a slipping southwards, and you would have noticed the second cyclone watch has just been extended southwards a little bit. And that's because we've just noticed in the last model run or so that we're expecting to see maybe a bit more of a southward motion. And I'll show you all the different models shortly. But let's talk through what's expected to happen here over the next couple of days. And we'll use an AI model, and then we'll hone in and have a closer look at this area shortly. All right, so basic overview. All right, so nothing today except for a couple of gusty storms. You can see those couple of gusty storms down there, right, to the south. All right, nothing there today for us. Right, as we continue, we can see that tomorrow, nothing for most of the day, except once again, a couple of gusty storms. We'll talk more about tomorrow's storms shortly because they could be really gusty. As we get into tomorrow night and early Saturday morning, we see our first big rain bands coming into this section of the state. All right, now our rain actually kicks off. It's a bit like in Queensland. Whenever we have a cyclone that sort of hits between, Cooktown and Townsville, Cooktown to Townsville aren't the first people that get the rain. It's actually Mackay that gets the rain first, and then the Whitsundays. So here, the same but opposite effect is how going on. So the actual rain doesn't kick off where the cyclone's going to hit. The actual rain kicks off in the northwest Kimberley, right, well north of the cyclone. So that's who gets the rain to start with. All right, so they're the first cabs off the rank from a rainfall perspective, and then ground zero joins in overnight early on Saturday. That's when Derby and Broome start to see their rainfall. They'll obviously see some of the heaviest falls, and those heaviest falls are going to be ahead of the cyclone and along the cyclone's track. So in this particular system, ahead of the cyclone and along the cyclone's track, and ahead of the cyclone on the eastern side of it. So we're not talking about any significant rain down into the Pilbara. So if you're hoping to get some good news in the Pilbara about some rain, it's not coming, not from me anyway. So the expectation is along the track and ahead of the track. And so we can see here heavy rainfall sets in between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Saturday, and the system comes onto the coast probably around afternoon at this stage, maybe evening. The earlier it comes onto the coast, the less intense it will probably be. That extra 6 hours, because remember what I said to you, tomorrow night is when we expect to see the system start to explode in intensity, in convection. That's where we expect to see the system, when we expect to see the system go a little bit silly with regards to that thunderstorm activity. So if it crosses in the morning, it won't have time to fully realise that intensification. If it crosses in the evening, it has an extra 12 hours that day over the warm waters, over a very moist environment, and over a low to moderate shear environment. And so this becomes quite an interesting exercise for intensification, given the fact that the cyclone's pretty small. I know it looks like it's very large because of the rain field, but the actual cyclone circulation itself, the wind field, is actually quite small. And the rain associated with the core is actually quite tight, but it's the rain associated with the monsoon that extends so far to the north. So this is where we get very significant rainfall through this region. Now, as we go between 2 and 8 p.m, we see that heavy rain with that cyclone's core. So see the cyclone's core coming onto the coastline somewhere around that Broome Derby area. Could be at 50k north, 100k north, could be 50, 100k south, right? But generally, we're expecting it just south of Bidyadanga all the way up to, I forget what that little river's called up here. But anywhere in there is where we expect it, with the most likely crossing in between Broome and Derby at the moment. So as we go, we can see that there's further heavy rainfall throughout the night. So the system hits the coast in the afternoon or evening, and then there's further heavy falls of rain that continue in the area into the overnight time frame. And then we continue to maintain a fairly slow motion through the nighttime hours, and it's not until the next day, through about lunchtime onwards, where we start to see the system contracting southwards. So this little period here, as it's coming onto the coast, there's an actual deceleration of the system because it's getting ready to change direction again. So it was moving steadily southeast, then it hits the coast and then starts to change direction. And that process, due to the momentum of the system and its inertia, its resistance to change, means that it's going to decelerate first, excuse me, before it accelerates back to the south, right? So that period, unfortunately, is right around landfall. So there's going to be some pretty serious impacts over a lot longer time than the last cyclone that went through here, which was just a couple of hour thing. This one could last 12 to 18 hours of fairly significant impacts in this area. So that's the expectation here. So that's the broad strokes overview. I want to give you an idea here at the wind field that we're looking for in this system, just to give you an idea that, yes, the system's small, even though the rainfall coming out of it is huge, over a huge area, system itself with that wind field is actually quite tight and quite small. Let's have a look at that. We'll use the HAFS model for this. It's a hurricane-specific model that's designed to look at wind fields and internal dynamics of tropical cyclones, that the global models probably aren't as good at. The problem with the HAFS, it can over-intensify something, but I think it was pretty much on the ball when I looked at it last, so I'm hoping that it's still the case today. Right, so surface winds. So we can see here the system's pretty poorly formed. Now, by the way, this model cuts off because it's storm-centred, all right? So you're not going to see the whole Kimberley in this model. You're going to see the parts that are affected by the storm or the cyclone. All right, so we can see here that over the course of overnight tonight, early tomorrow, we're really not expecting to see too much intensification. I mean, sure, it's going to start producing some big, deep thunderstorms, yeah, but they're probably not going to be able to wrap fully around the circulation. If they do, then we're starting to talk about a Category 3 and above type system. So that's why we don't expect a Category 3, because it's going to take a fair while to just sort of wrap that convection around. So you can see here, the system on its wind field is on the northern side. So what we've got here on that screen that you're seeing is this shear line, this little line here on that northwestern flank. So that little line is where a lot of our deepest and strongest thunderstorms are. That little line is having to share, or the cyclone centre is having to share some energy with that little line. So ideally, the cyclone doesn't want that little line there, all right? Because then it has to share all of its deep convection with that line. So as I said to you about cyclones, they're attention whores. They need the attention to be able to drive that convection right into that core. So the expectation here is that the northern side of the system is packing a fairly significant wind punch. And now as the shear line breaks down at some stage tomorrow afternoon, evening, the cyclone, see how it starts to wrap the wind field around? So once that shear line begins to weaken, the cyclone is able to wrap that wind around the circulation, because up until then, it was a half clone. All right, it's good enough for the JTWC to name it for sure, but until it can wrap that wind more than halfway around, the Bureau won't name it. So our half clone becomes a full clone at some stage very, very late in the process, right? So Friday 11 p.m, Saturday 2 a.m, see how it didn't have time? See how it didn't have time to wrap up? It was trying its best, but it hit the coast too early. So that's why the timing matters here. If the cyclone hits too early on Saturday, it won't have time to wrap that wind field up. If it hits later, let's say it hits when the other models were, or when most models are telling us, which is that afternoon, it's still got 6 to 12 hours to wrap that wind field around. So it's got 6 to 12 hours of further intensification potential. And so that's why we see, and we've been saying this for a while now, a system that moves a little further north tends to be weaker and hits the coast a little earlier. A system that hits a little further south tends to be stronger, more put together, but also hits the coast later on Saturday. And so that's a really great example of the cyclone trying its best at the last minute to put itself together and just failing to do so, or just managing to maybe make it to Cat 1 with an hour to go, all right? And then you can see the system, once it hits the coast, pay attention to this part. See how it slows down throughout Saturday? It just slows down through this region. It really starts to move at a snail's pace. So that's that momentum. So the steering pattern has changed and it's driving the cyclone southwards from as early as Saturday night. But the cyclone has its momentum, and the momentum is going to be very, very resistant to change. And so that means the cyclone will initially slow down rather than just stop, and then from there the cyclone then pushes southwards, and then you can see it starts to accelerate to the south. Okay, so that's the end result of what we're expecting. Now you can see in this setup category 1. Now I want to show you what all the different models are going to are showing us with regards to the intensity of this, right? So let's go over to this chart over here. Where is it? Have I got rid of it? No, there it is. All right, so we've had a look at this particular model. I just want to make sure that we're getting the right stuff so you can see the time frame. This is universal time. So the universal time at 10 a.m. that's 10 a.m. Queensland time, so that's 8 a.m. your time. So that was when these models were run. So we've just had a look there at the HAFS model, and you can see that the Euro model is also showing us a very similar tail here, and we can see the system is crossing the coast at 988 hectopascals, 40 knots, which is category 1 intensity. The Euro ensemble is the first thing we'll sort of look at. And notice here everything we've just talked about, right? System tracking southeast, hits the coast on Saturday in the model average. It hits the coast a few hours later than what we just saw in that high-res HAFS model. So here it hits the coast at 2 p.m. WA time. At 2 p.m. WA time, it's had an extra 6 to 12 hours of putting itself together compared to the model we just had a look at. And the model average, if it hits the coast there, is a category 2. That's the model average, right? And you'll notice even further southwards, where it has a little bit more time and a little bit more open water to play with, we actually see category 3 intensity achieved. Forget this one here, category 5. That's a little bit far-fetched. But we could see cat 2, cat 3 if the system can hold off on that land interaction until Saturday night. The system is going to move into a nice environment for development here overall, and it's moving in the same direction as the vertical wind shear, which is operating on it. So this gives it a really good chance at wrapping up before landfall. And the experimental model suit is much, much tighter in agreement. And you can see here that we're moving it from just south of Lagrange all the way to Derby, or probably King Sound on the northern edge, right? So this is our focal point quite clearly. And you can see there in the experimental models, one of the criticisms of the experimental models is that they can sometimes overestimate the intensification potential of these things. Similar to HAFS, it can sometimes overestimate. But overall, you can see there that we're hitting the coast as a category 1 hurricane. So we're hitting the coast at a borderline category 3 intensity system on the experimental models. So in the real world, that probably means we're probably seeing category 2 strength system there, right? But once again, it comes down to what time do we hit the coast? And you can see here, we're hitting the coast Saturday at 2 p.m. Well, we're not even hitting the coast yet at 2 p.m., right? Notice the ones that hit the coast a little earlier. So these ones here, these green ones here that hit the coast a little bit earlier, a little bit further northwards, they're the ones that don't really intensify to that full potential. And so this is really important. That last 6 to 12 hours, folks, I can't stress how important it is versus a system that hits the coast early versus a system that hits the coast late. All right, later, the more intense it becomes. All right, so that's our system here, and clearly then slowing down after landfall and then moving in a southerly direction. So unfortunately for the Pilbara, who are really crying out for rain, this is another one of those near misses for you guys. It's a bit devastating, I'm sure. There's a lot of folks in the Pilbara. I know for Queenslanders that sounds odd for me to say that, but the Pilbara gets its rain from one of these things, right? And this is so close yet so far to them. So the Pilbara really needs something like this for their big rain. Unfortunately, this one is not going to provide much for the Pilbara, maybe a couple of gusty storms. Last thing I want to talk about is before this system hits the coast, the possibility of really strong thunderstorms. So the forecast radar here from the higher res model. So what we're looking for here is on Friday afternoon and evening. See these big storms down here, these yellow-orange parts down here? So this is this is probably one of the most damaging aspects of this system, is the potential for very gusty thunderstorms on the outskirts of the actual system. The wind gusts at the surface here are being up to about 50 to 60 knots, excuse me, which is probably about the maximum winds the system's producing if it hits the coast early on Saturday. Obviously, the system will strengthen a bit more if it hits the coast later on Saturday, but if it hits early on Saturday, these could be the strongest winds the system produces, and they're not necessarily a direct result of the circulation's core. So that's something we've got to be aware of in these sparsely populated areas of the East Pilbara and the Southwest Kimberley, is the possibility of those really strong winds with thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. And then you can see maximum gusts are around about what the maximum gusts were from the storms, assuming the cyclone hits that early. Obviously, if it hits later, bigger gusts coming. All right, so that's the expectation here. I think that's all we need to talk about for this area. If you've got questions about the Kimberley, I'm going to prioritise those questions. Okay, so if anyone's got questions about WA's impacts, I'm going to prioritise those questions over any Queensland ones tonight. So I'll try and make sure I answer any WA ones, because that's obviously the most important one with the cyclone impact. Right, let's get over to Queensland and let's have a look at what's going on here in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Here we go, Gulf lows. I freaking hate Gulf lows. They are dreadful things to forecast. They really are the hardest thing on earth, I reckon, to forecast. Oh, them and maybe tornadoes, they'd be on par. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, here we go, Gulf low. Right, where is he? Yeah, difficult. It was easier to find when we had the visible imagery. He's a bit difficult to find at the moment. Yeah, probably right on that southwestern edge of where the bombs got him. Oh, hang on. Let's just upgrade that. Right, so just on that southwestern edge is where I reckon it is, just in there, see? There's a little hint of rotation on the radar. It's really hard to see, and we don't really have great imagery there now that we've got dark. So what we're seeing there is some slow-moving rain bands through the Cape, and some slow-moving rain bands pushing into the Lizard Island area. All right, now let's have a look at how this system progresses. We don't have HAFS modelling here, so we've got to use more of our traditional models. Speaking of traditional, we'll go with AI first, all right, because AI, we've found, is mapping out Gulf cyclones better than anything we've ever had. So we'll use AI first, and then we'll get we'll go in. Right. So there's our system. As we go into tonight, you can see, yep, on that southwestern boundary. That's exactly where I'd put it to, southwestern edge of where the bomb's got it there. All right, so that's our system in the next couple of hours. So see how it's starting to slow down. So it's been moving really fast today. So it was moving really fast at the start of the day. It's slowing down as we go into the evening. Overnight tonight, we're going to see a big, strong monsoon burst on the north side, and we're seeing the system slowing down. And as it slows down, it also moves in a southerly direction. And we've talked about the technicalities of that in our subscription service. So if you want to be a subscriber and learn about the technical aspects of it, please join us at weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. But generally speaking, just in terms of what's happening, the system should be moving southwards. Now, the difficult part, and this is something we talked about in the subscription update, is how far southwards, how sharply southwards does it move, how fast and how far and for how long, because some of the modelling holds it in play around the southern Gulf coastline, some of the modelling offshore off the Gulf coastline, and some of the modelling puts it right into the Gulf country. So we can see there that the system comes onto the coast Sunday night, Monday morning. All right, and that's generally what models are telling us. Let's have a look at what models are telling us, and then we'll talk about the impacts. Because right now you're looking at that and you're going, oh, what are we discussing this for? Yeah, you're going to see shortly why we're discussing it. So I just want to give you a quick look here at the, once again, where is it, Nitso? Okay, so we've left the WA system. Now let's move over to here, and let's have a look at the timing of impacts and the timing of the system itself, right? And we'll use the experimental modelling, because I dare say I haven't even looked at the Euro, because I think the Euro is going to have it going all the way from Vanuatu to Port Hedland. So we'll just leave the Euro for now, and we'll use the experimental modelling for this one. Right, so we've got a southeasterly flow tonight, so a northwest to southeast motion tonight. And then as we go into tomorrow, you'll notice there a slowing down and a southerly motion. So you can see there, slow down, slow down, slow down. And we're already at, what are we, Saturday there, Sunday, we're Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, Monday morning. So we're at Monday morning by the time we're making landfall. So that's three and a bit days to just go this little patch here. That's very slow motion of the system, right? So it's slow southerly motion. The system, as it slows down, it starts to produce significant rainfall because it's being fed by a monsoon. Now, here's the tricky part for North Queensland. At the same time as this little sucker's going on here, we've got something that's saving North Queensland from certain flood, and that's this thing here. We're not going to see it, so I've got to use the Euro. Oh, I don't want to use the Euro. All right, so without this thing here, North Queensland would be in certain flood over the next few days. But because we've got this thing here, it's creating a situation where we've got a lot of our convergence that would be coming onto the North Queensland coast is actually being squeezed on the south side of this low. All right, so that's the area here, south side of the low, that's where we're going to see a lot of rainfall in the next few days, and not on the actual coastline. While this low exists, it saves North Queensland from flood. When this low dies, we actually see North Queensland start to see extreme rainfall potential. So the longer it survives, because remember, that cyclone is moving very, very slowly to the south here, all right? That's only going to get to the coast on Monday, and it's still going to cause a lot of problems after Monday. So we need, if we don't want big rain here, we need this low to survive as long as possible out here in the Coral Sea, because it will attract that easterly flow to the south of it instead of this low attracting that easterly flow into North Queensland's coastline. So this low at the moment is saving North Queensland from what would otherwise have been an almost certain flood situation. We don't know how long this low is going to be sticking around. We don't know how quickly it's going to break down. That's the problem. We sort of think that it's going to break down. We're pretty confident it's going to break down. But how long does it stick around? How long does it stop that potential for extreme rain on that northeast coast? Some models have it quite strong and able to stick around till at least Monday, Tuesday. Some models weaken it fairly quickly on Saturday, Sunday, and in which case we start to see a real increase in rainfall at that time over the northeast, right? And it depends here on how quickly this breaks down as to how much rain we then attract onto the coastline. Because you can bet your bottom dollar that this thing over here in the Gulf is going to be attracting lots and lots of easterly winds to the south of it. But it can't attract them all from the Coral Sea and from the deep tropics until this low over here buggers off. All right, so buggers off means either goes out to the east a long way from the coast or dies. Once it dies, then that easterly flow will get attracted into this low over here, and that's when we start talking extreme rainfall for northeast Queensland. Let's have a look at how that plays out on a rainfall chart, and we'll use two. We'll have a look at two of them and go from there. By the way, folks, if you like what we're doing, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. Check them out. $32.95 gets you all the forecasts. So everything I'm talking about tonight, I've already talked about with these subs. And Fair Dinkum Builds, our major sponsor on the top left. Check them out if you're in the market for a shed, safe, accredited shed. All right, let's get over to this chart. All right, and we're going to zoom. Hang on, let me just make sure you can see it, because right now you're cutting off. All right, beautiful. That's better. We've just got, I've got 4K screens in front of me, but I can't transmit in 4K. So I need to resize some stuff. All right, so hopefully you can see that. Now, by the way, this is your frame of reference. So anything in the pink purple is big rain over, and it tends to be underestimated because it's smoothed out, okay? So just be aware, anything that starts to show purple signs, we're very interested, all right? Anything that shows orange and red, build an arc. So the idea is anything in the purple range is heavy rainfall. Anything in the blue is, okay, it's a bit of drizzly rain. It might get heavy at times. Anything in the light blue, not overly interested. So let's keep an eye on that. These are 6 hourly totals, all right? So 6 hourly totals, and the timing is in UTC. So 00 is 10 a.m., 06 is 4 p.m., 12 is 10 p.m., 18 is 4 a.m. In weather, we don't talk globally, we don't talk in local times. In weather, we talk in UTC time, okay? So just a heads up there, if we use UTC time and it's confusing you, you need to get your head around that, because I use UTC time almost all the time, all right? So just understand what UTC time is in your local times. All right, so as we go through, so this is our low over here in the Coral Sea, right? That's the one that's creating and stopping any rain from coming into northeast Queensland. Now, as that low continues to operate out here, see how we're not over the next 12 to 18 hours getting much rain in northeast Queensland? Notice, though, that our low in the Gulf is really starting to create a lot of rain over here in the Cape, the Western Cape. You can see that happening there. As we go through, we can see that into Friday morning, so Thursday night, Friday morning, heavy rainfall developing on the Western Cape from about Weipa south to Kowanyama. And you can see on the northeast Cape, around Cooktown or just north of Cooktown, there's another little secondary maximum of rainfall just in here. That's a little convergence zone on the east coast. Our low still out here. Our low is still... I was going to say no, I won't use that word. But our low is blocking. Our low is blocking the rainfall, all right? So the idea is it's a bit of a nuisance here in terms of for those that want rainfall. So as we continue into Friday afternoon, we see some heavy falls of rain in that area north of Cooktown Friday afternoon and down through the Western Cape. Moving into Friday night, we can start to see some of that rain extending southwards to Cairns, just a few showers extending southwards to Cairns. The heavy rain may extend south to the Daintree at this time on Friday evening, Friday night. Our low continues to drift south, but is very, very slow moving and is producing all of its rain on its eastern side, very similar to the WA one, isn't it? So as we continue, we see that the low continues to drift south, and we see the heavy rain continues to drift south too. Now, this is on the proviso. Watch what our Coral Sea low is doing. See how a Coral Sea low is now moving away from the coast further? Yeah. So that's on the proviso that our low moves further away from the coast. We're then able to attract new moisture in from the Coral Sea into far north Queensland. So our blocking low, the low that was blocking all the rainfall today and tomorrow, starts to break down overnight tomorrow, or moves eastwards, and the blocking pattern breaks down overnight tomorrow night into Saturday morning. So as we continue on to Saturday, we see heavy rainfall, particularly up in that area north of Cairns, because our low in the Gulf is very slow moving around Mornington Island at that stage. And you can see then this pink area right over the top of, I'll just see if we can just make that a little bit larger for you. Right, so that pink area right over the top of that Cairns Daintree area, right? So that's where we expect to see some heaviest falls. Now you'll notice not much of an extension southwards of that at this stage, at this early stage. And then as we go into Sunday, we can see Sunday morning, we've got widespread areas of heavy rain on the coast, lighter rain through the inland, and very heavy falls of rain on the Western Cape and the northern parts of the Gulf Country, or the northeastern Gulf Country. Moving through into Sunday afternoon, we see heavy falls of rain just drifting south to Ingham now. Why? Because our low drifted southwards during that time, and our low over here has buggered off. So everything is contingent on the low in the Coral Sea buggering off, whether that means it dies or whether that means it pushes east. There's no way we can bring that rain southwards if that low is still around. All right, so that low's got to move way out to the east, or it's just got to die. Once it dies, literally the floodgates open for the northeast coastline. All right, so that's the expectation here as we go into Sunday and then potentially into Monday. Remember, our low over here doesn't do anything for Sunday, Monday. It's very slow moving. And so it's going to stick around the southern Gulf. We don't know exactly how far south it goes, though. That's important for northwest Queensland and the northern interior, who have just copped a truck ton of rain the last month. And that also means that we don't know how far south this convergence on the northeast coast will go. Does it get to Townsville? At this stage, evidence says no. It says that it'll stay north of Townsville. But we know with these sort of things that usually it does sort of nudge the Townsville district. So at this stage, you would say there's a high confidence in Ingham northwards, this convergence band, and there's a low to moderate confidence down to Townsville and a lower confidence anywhere further south of that. So moving on, you can see into Monday afternoon, Monday night, the heavy rain continues. The low is very slow moving around the Gulf coastline in both of these models. So we've got really good agreement here. It's very hard to get good agreement when it comes to Gulf lows. I can show you 5 different models, and I'll show you 5 out of our numerical weather prediction models. They will show you some crazy freaking scenarios when it comes to a Gulf low. This is why we like to use the AI modelling. It's fairly consistent. Yes, it doesn't get it right all the time. Absolutely it doesn't. But it's quite consistent, and you can formulate a forecast based on it. If I was looking at this low 3-4 years ago without the assistance of AI, I'd just be shrugging my shoulders and saying, we could get 500 mils, you could get 0 mils. All right? It just allows us to get a little bit more confident in our assessment, and it allows us to sort of formulate a plan in our heads about what the forecast could look like. As I say, it probably won't get it spot on, but it'll be somewhere in the ballpark. And you can see where somewhere in the ballpark is. From about Ingham up to Cairns is where we're seeing our heaviest falls of rain, out towards Georgetown, Greenvale potentially, on the southern edge, and west in that area that really doesn't need any more rain. Then as we go into Tuesday, you'll notice here on Tuesday that generally speaking, we're expecting very heavy rainfall through far north Queensland, both on the coast and inland. This is because now there's no further disruption here. There's no other lows, there's no other garbage. We're really pulling in all of this moisture from the deep tropics all into and squeezing it into this low. And the mountain ranges of the coastline are going to result in big rainfall there. And then inland, the squeezing of the low, even though there's no big mountain ranges inland, the squeezing of the low is going to create the lift for the inland areas. So that's how we're going to get some pretty big numbers over the course of time into next week. Now, from Wednesday, we think the low will start moving west into the Northern Territory. So as we go into Wednesday, and this is where we start to lose a bit of model consensus even in the AI stuff, right? So by this stage, we start to see that some of the models want to keep it there, some of the models want to start moving it away, and this is where it all starts to go pear-shaped, even with the assistance of AI modeling. So that's where we are at the moment. So up until Wednesday, we're pretty confident about everything, right? So, well, no, hang on. Not with a Gulf low, we're never confident, but you can see there's consistency there, all right? So there's some level of confidence there. I would never say we're confident about anything that happens in the Gulf. The Gulf is the trickiest basin, in my opinion, in the world to forecast for. And by association then, so is North Queensland, so is far North Queensland. So these are our rainfall totals between... Let's not go that far because we don't know how things are going to pan out on Wednesday. So let's just stick to looking at the rainfall between now and Wednesday, the accumulated falls between now and Wednesday. And once again, just for reference, these are the numbers. So anything in the pink, anything in the red is fairly significant. Anything in this is very significant. Anything in this is prepare for flooding. Right. So let's have a look at where the colours are. So this is now between now and next Wednesday, and we can see here that we've got very significant rainfall through much of far North Queensland from about Tully, maybe Ingham, northwards, throughout that coast. And very importantly, unlike a lot of the last rain events, this isn't just coastal. This is actually affecting all of inland far North Queensland. So a lot of the stuff that happened the last few weeks around the northeast Queensland coastline was very, very coastal, right? The tablelands, they got 20 mils a day. This is a little bit different because we've got multiple things that are squeezing the air. We've got the low here that's going to squeeze the air into it. We've got the mountain ranges which are squeezing the air and the air into them. So we've got a situation here where multiple convergence boundaries will exist both on the coast and over inland. So this won't be just a coast thing like the last one was. This will be a widespread thing across far North Queensland. So 1 to 300s is a reasonably conservative estimate of what we can see through Wednesday. And then how far southwards? You'll see here that they don't agree on how far southwards we move that rain. So we don't know if it's going to get to the Flinders Highway or if it's going to be all well north of the Flinders Highway. So that's where we are at the moment. You can see at this point in time, we're not overly keen on Mackay with Sundays. There's a small risk that if the low moves a little further southwards, that, yeah, sure, the Whitsundays might join in. But for now, it really looks to be north of the Flinders Highway, north of the Townsville district at the moment, all right? But Townsville district is very tricky at the moment. It could be, it's right on the boundary. So if that low does move a slightly bit further south, Townsville will end up getting pummeled as well. And they're usually the part of the coastline around that Rolling Stone area that gets hit hardest when they get this northeasterly feeder band developing. Right, so that's what I've got for you there. Once again, the key here, the key understanding of both of these, the low in WA is moving towards the coast. We expect it to intensify sharply tomorrow night into Saturday morning. So that's the time where it should intensify pretty sharply. If it hasn't intensified or if it's hit the coast by Saturday morning, all good. If it hasn't hit the coast by Saturday morning, that means it's going to intensify further until it hits the coast. All right, so that becomes a real problem for us if we're in Derby and Broome. This system isn't really much of a wind threat, certainly not in populated areas. There's a small risk that it does become a tropical cyclone on Sunday if it's still offshore, but this system is all about the rain and the widespread rain. And the thing that's saving North Queensland for the next 2 days is that little nuisance low that's located east of Willis Island. Let's have one last chat about that one, just so you know exactly where it is, and so you're under no illusions. This thing is what is saving you in North Queensland right now. This silly, I can't even see it. Where is it? It's hard to even see. But anyway, there's a little low in here, and yeah, it might be just in there. It's very hard to see. But that one little tiny low is the difference between you getting 500 mils to a metre of rain in the next few days and just getting that 1 to 300. right? While that low sticks around, we're not going to see any of that flooding rain hit the northeast coast. Soon as that low buggers off, that means either goes east or dies, the floodgates literally will open for northeast Queensland. All right, that's what I got for you tonight. Let's have a look at some chats, eh? And good evening, Ann. Oh, yep, we've talked about those ones. Let's see. Dolphins, the guns are getting bigger. Oh, yeah, no, we said that. No lifting today. It was just cardio. Yuck. I'm good, thanks. Thanks for your updates. Thanks, Caroline. Billy Joe. Hey, Nitso. Oh, one of my favourite bands. Lead singer's name, Billy Joe. Green Day. G'day from Air, Bradley. G'day, Brad. You're going to have to give yourself a pay rise after next week, says David. Yeah, mate. Yeah, I think I'm losing my voice, so I need to be careful. Barry, Umol Brock. Thanks, Baz. Thanks for tuning in, mate. The subscription is money well spent. Thanks, Michael. For those that don't know, we've got a subscription service, weatheriq.com.au/subscribe. There it is there. $32.95. We're fully funded by people who subscribe to us. We don't get any government funding, so if you do like what we do, please consider supporting us. Thanks, mate. Paul, thumbs up to you, mate. Amy, hey from Mareeba. Hey, Amy, you might have been a bit interested in what we just talked about there, the good rainfall potential for Mareeba over the course of the next week, mate. So you keep an eye on that Gulf low. Could be some big rain in that barren catchment over the course of the next week with that low drifting southwards and with moisture coming into the area. So keep an eye on that, Amy. I can't see the name here because it's in blue. Matt, evening, Nitso. How's the weather looking in Bowen Airlie over the weekend? Yeah, mate, at this stage, I'm not overly interested in that area, to be perfectly honest. I don't mean to be rude. It's just not really a focal point area. Let's have a look. It's Sundays. Yeah, this low is just going to stuff you around a bit, mate, to be honest. It's just going to be there, and it's just going to make sure that, the weather doesn't get too bad out here, I wouldn't imagine. I don't see a situation where you're getting pummeled with rain over the weekend. Let's have a look. No, the low's still mucking around there till Sunday. Look, if it breaks down on Sunday, this is when we might start to see some moisture coming into this area. So maybe, but it needs to break down for any moisture. At this stage, mate, you need that low in the Gulf to move a lot further south, and you need this low out here to just break down. And until it does that, I wouldn't be too concerned about the Bowen Whitsundays area. From a surface wind perspective, obviously with the low there, and the low is going to be there for the next couple of days, so that the surface winds here are going to be pretty fresh to strong, all right? So it's not a great time to go boating today, tomorrow. Look, even Sunday's not all that flash. And then as we go into Monday, I reckon that's going to be your best bet boating. But for those of you in the Townsville coastline, be aware that because the surge line, or the shear line, I should say, is going to be just north of you, that means that the Townsville coastline will be pretty ordinary. But Bowen Whitsunday should get better for boating on Monday, I would suspect. All right. Rainfall average for Broome. I think it's about 500 millimetres, Terence. We could just do a quick Google. Let's have a look. I don't want to lose any of my important pages. All right, Broome rainfall average. It's about 530, 500. Yeah, there it is. Between 510 to 600. And a lot of the time, the rainfalls actually might be a little bit strong, heavier just inland of Broome. So a lot of the time, Broome will see the what do you call them? The storms, the sea breeze boundary storms. So those sea breeze boundary storms, they often die on Broome's doorstep, and the poor buggers have to cop all the heat and humidity, and they hardly ever get rewarded unless they get a really strong steering wind, and a lot of the time those storms happen at night time for them. But yeah, so 500 to 600 mils, and yeah, 75% there falls in that January to March period, mate. So yeah, it's a lot less than the East Coast anyway. The same, let me think, Broome is... what is it? How far away is Broome? I'm just trying to think. Is Broome on the same as Townsville? Broome latitude? There you go. Google again, eh? Yeah, so it's about probably just north. So this is the equivalent of Ingham Tully on the east coast is Broome. So you can see Ingham Tully 4,000 mils, 3,500 mils, Broome 600. Right, so very, very different climatic pattern, even though they're on the same latitude base. Right, hoping for relief on the Atherton Tablelands. Yeah, Mel, I think something is coming, mate. You will get some relief in the Atherton Tablelands, but maybe not tomorrow. Just give yourself a bit of time there. Saturday, you'll see a couple of showers developing, and then Sunday, you should see some heavy stuff. Bradley, what is frustrating me? You know what is frustrating me? The useless pricks at the bomb have only forecasted 0 to 30 mils every day for the next week in Cairns. This is why people get flooded out, because the idiots give you 24-hour notice. Yeah, look, in saying that, the problem is I don't know how much operationally the bomb use a lot of the AI modelling at the moment. So a lot of the operational forecast decisions are automated. When it comes to rainfall, so that 0 to 30 that you're getting, that comes from the automated forecast. And if you take a look at the automated forecast, we've got it here on our subscription service too, if people want to use it, although we don't recommend it for, we recommend it just as a real basic idea. We don't usually recommend using the ADFD as a decision-making tool, just for real basic. How likely is it to rain? Yeah, sure, but not as a real tool in an extreme event, certainly. So this is the ADFD modelling. So this is what a lot of your bullshit 0 to 30s are based on, right? So, and then in select cases, a meteorologist will go through and go, oh, that's a rubbish forecast. We'll change it, but they don't often do that. So this is an example, right? So for Cairns tomorrow, well, we don't expect anything, so that's all right. Saturday, you can see there, 10 to 15 mils. And, Sunday, 15 to 20 mils. Monday, 20 to 30 mils. Tuesday, 20 to 30 mils. So the problem with the ADFD model is it uses a mix and a blend. The problem is also its strength. It uses a mix and a blend of modelling. So, if one model's showing you 600 mils and the other model's showing you 0 mils, it'll blend that together and weight the model that's probably performing best and give that a weighting. And so if we take a look here, that we've got varying solutions. So let's use Sunday as an example. So in this model, which is a pretty good model when it comes to troughing and general convergence, you can see Cairns is getting 100 mils on Sunday, all right? On the Euro, which is one that they will weight highly when they come up with a forecast, you can see here on Sunday, Cairns is only getting 20 mils on this one. So they would have weighted that one higher than that one that's showing 100. But we know from success rates that the one showing 100 is usually more successful at this orographic lift potential. So yeah, mate, the problem is automation, right? We're not at the stage where we can automate forecasts in Australia and be accurate with them. We're just not there. We're not the USA. We don't have extreme resolution modelling that is reliable. Our high-res model sometimes will give you 1,000 mils and you get 2. It's just not very reliable at the moment. We do have high-res model, and they are working on a new version of it, an Australia-wide version of it, but mate, we're not there yet. We're not there yet, and we don't have the money to be there yet. And we don't, one of the things that they keep cutting, one of the services the bomb keep cutting, I shouldn't rant about this. I'm not ranting. This is a genuine concern. They're cutting a lot of the regional offices, and they're automating the balloon flights. And the balloon flights are, they're one of many tools that we've got to analyse the weather. And the problem is that a lot of the time the balloon flights just don't work, or they just want a cost cut and they don't send them up. And so you're limiting some of the data that computer models can then use. You're limiting, you're left to satellite interpretation data. You're left to upper air data to aeroplanes, that sort of thing, man. It's just, we're just cutting services to regional areas. Well, not we're trying to look after you in regional areas, but they're cutting services to regional areas, and they're trying to base everything out of Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, right? And it's bullshit. The other day, 2 days, was it 2 days ago? We had the JTWC had a cyclone, a tropical cyclone. The Bureau of Meteorology didn't even acknowledge it as a low. I mean, I get that they've got different classifications, but one agency can't call it a cyclone, the other one not even call it a low. I mean, come on. Someone was just sleeping at the wheel. Like, anyway, that's why you're getting 0 to 30 every day. I can tell you that if and when this sets up, and once this little low bugger's off near Willis, you're going to get a hell of a lot more than 30 mils out there, Brad. So, yeah, get ready for that. Mark, hi, Nitso. I know it's a long shot, but anything for around Rolliston next week? Nah, man. I'm not seeing much there. Let's have a look. What am I looking for? Emerald. I think we've got a bit of instability for, yeah, look at that. We've got some nice storms. I mean, yeah, there's a few there. But that's about it, mate. I don't think there's anything major on the way. So there's tomorrow's, yes, patchy storms tomorrow, patchy storms Saturday. Maybe, oh no, still patchy Sunday. I thought there was some better storms Sunday. Maybe Monday's the better day. Yeah, that's better. Monday, still patchy storms, but there's a few more of them. Tuesday, yeah, fining up. Wednesday, fining up. All right, so yeah, nothing there, mate, that makes us go wow. But yeah, you'll get a couple of storms about, and I think those Monday ones, I thought they were Sunday, but those Monday ones might have a bit more kick to them. So just be aware of that on Monday, those storms might have a bit of bite. Andrew, chance of the low in the Gulf doesn't intensify. Will it go east into the Coral Sea, intensify and come back to the coast? No, I'm not seeing too much evidence of that. I think we're already seeing the low slowing down now. Yeah, I probably don't want to deep dive and analyse that, mate. I think we talked about that in the subscription service, Andrew. So if you're a subscriber, I think we talked about the low not showing any type of vertical development, and if it did that, it could go out to the Coral Sea, grow, and then come back in because of the change in the steering. So you can see here the reason why we just talked about Rolliston, right? The reason why it all finds up next week is a big mid-level ridge, and that mid-level ridge will drive anything in the Coral Sea back towards the coast. But at this stage, mate, that's not a real concern, I wouldn't think. Based on the fact that already we're seeing the system slowing down just in the last few hours. Yeah, and you can see here, we've got a fairly good agreement in the modelling that it stays on the west coast of Queensland, not the east coast of Queensland, right? So all those dots are staying on the west coast, mate. And, you know, the ones that do get on to the east coast, they're very weak and they stay around hugging the coast. So, yeah, I'm not overly concerned about it going out to the Coral Sea at the moment, mate. And I don't think any of the experimental stuff is either concerned about that either. Oh, yeah, there's one there. There's one there that pulls it out to sea, but pulls it out so quickly that it's gone. But, yeah, this is the thing that would concern you longer term, is if we did get something out in the Coral Sea by, say, you know, Monday, Tuesday next week, because after Tuesday, there's a big ridge that takes up the whole Coral Sea. So anything out here in the Coral Sea after Tuesday, Wednesday comes hurtling back at the coastline. But listen, that's you know, that's pipe dream stuff. Let's just focus on what's going on out here at the moment. Thanks, Nitso from the Whitsundays. No worries, Susan. Keep an eye on that stuff up there, but for now, you're probably a little bit too far south. Matt, thanks, Nitso. If it's boring, that's good. Yeah. Look, the chaser in me would say otherwise. You may have discussed it, but did you see a single very long to? Oh, mate, nah, I'm not Morgan. I don't mean to be rude, man, but I don't use the GFS, and I don't use it. I certainly don't use it beyond day 7. So if there's something coming at us in day 15, 16, don't want to know about it. You know, that silly thing will put something like that out 50 times in a season. We'll get one of them. So, I mean, yeah, sure, knock yourself out, have a look at it if it's a bit of entertainment value. But we've got other things to talk about that are real issues, rather than a, you know, one model run 16 days out that shows a hurtling Yazzie-style cyclone coming into Queensland. We get those Yazzie-style cyclones into Queensland 50 times a season on that model. So unless we get support from other models, there's no support at the moment from any model on that. You know, I'm not even going to entertain it. Sorry, mate. Fee, thanks, Nitso. No worries, Fee. We'll leave that for the Yahoo pages. If you see anyone posting a GFS model 16 days out, call that shit out. Call that shit out. And you know what they do? They put it out and they go, oh, we don't think this is going to happen, but isn't it fun to watch? And people don't read that part. People just see the big cyclone coming straight into Queensland from the Solomons, and then they share that shit. I hate that shit. Call it out if you see it. Sean, g'day Nitso. Thanks for all your amazing weather forecasts over the years. No worries, Sean. Glad to help. I have a question about Northern Hemisphere. Oh, geez, mate. Probably not the right time when we're talking about all this stuff. Northern Hemisphere weather and the monsoon. Will the sudden stratospheric warming events that have made the weather so cold and windy in the Northern Hemisphere late last year have any impacts? That's an area I haven't studied, Sean. I'm going to be frank with you, mate. I don't know. I haven't studied how stratospheric warming events in the Northern Hemisphere impact our ability to see a monsoon. That is not in my purview at the moment, and it's not something I can ever devote time to during the wet season to study. Ask me that question in the dry season. If we do a live during the dry season, ask me that question and I'll make a point to research it, mate. But at the moment, I have no idea. And this is one of the things I told our subscribers back when we had our big sudden stratospheric warming event. We have no idea how it impacts us seasonally. We think we have some idea, but we have no idea how it impacts us seasonally. We're having a bit of a guess. There hasn't been enough of them for us to know with any type of certainty how that affects us. The Northern Hemisphere have studied these a little bit more, mate. And so the Northern Hemisphere probably does have an idea at how the SSWs affect their sub-seasonal and seasonal forecasts. But we've had 3 in the Southern Hemisphere, so I just don't know. I don't think that's a data set that you can make you can't even hypothesize what they might do over a data set of 3 in the Southern Hemisphere. So, mate, I genuinely can't answer that for you because I genuinely don't know. And that's one of the things. We don't know everything about every science. Every person in the science doesn't understand all the stuff about the science, right? So, I can't give you an answer, mate. That could be a good research topic for the dry season when there's nothing to do. Amy, yeah, sweet. Wouldn't mind a good rainfall for Mariba, been so hot and most storms been going around us. Yeah, keep an eye on that. It might not be just general storms, Amy. You might just see a bit more just general rain areas. Thanks for that, mate. Appreciate it. No worries, Mark. Peter, anything for Townsville, Nitso? No, Townsville's right on that southern edge, mate. So we talked about the area north of Townsville. Yeah, so you can see here, so Townsville is right on the southern edge of that boundary of where the heavy rain is. So you can see Townsville in this setup getting 20 to 50 mils over the next 7 days. In this setup getting 10 to 30 mils over the next 7 days. But listen, if that low, this is the problem, right? If that low pushes just another 100k south down into here, then Townsville gets into that. So Townsville then gets into that 1 to 300. All right, so really, really important you understand that while Townsville is right on the edge now, there's no guarantee it stays on the edge. And it'll depend on how slow the cyclone, how much the cyclone slows down and how far south the cyclone goes after hitting the coast in the Gulf. So for now, mate, I just, that's just assume that the heavy rain will be north of Townsville, but very, very, very close. Andrew, cheers, thanks for that. I am a subscriber. Yeah. So Andrew, I think I mentioned that possibility today in the subscription update when we talked about if the low doesn't the low in the Gulf doesn't show any convection, then the monsoon will drag it out to sea into the Coral Sea. We'll know that tomorrow, mate. So if we see it already over the Cape tomorrow, we'll know that it hasn't developed deep convection, and it might be something to watch longer term. But we'll know we can safely rule that out tomorrow, I think. So if it hasn't gone over the Cape by lunchtime tomorrow, we're pretty confident then that it's going to stay on the western side. Okay. Anything? Yep. All right. Mint. Awesome. Morgan, exactly what I wanted to hear. Thanks. Oh, no worries, Morgan. I thought you were baiting me into talking about a Cat 5 whacking Townsville or something in 16 days. Andrew, cheers, Nitso, for that. I am ever since Jasper. Good stuff, mate. Fantastic. Yeah, it's good to say almost spot on. Yeah, that I'm never going to say that I'm spot on, and I never take credit. If we are right, it's because we've got good guidance to be right. You know, it's not me going out on a limb and saying something. It's because the guidance is showing me that. It's always, you've got to always, when it comes to weather forecasting, there's no such thing as gut. I don't believe in gut. I believe in what the data shows. All right, thanks for watching tonight, folks. Our next one in two nights, not tomorrow night. So for those of you in WA, make sure you've gone back through this one and understand what we've talked about, because our next one might be after landfall.